Since 1829, four incarnations of the Welland Canal have conveyed people and goods across the Niagara Peninsula between Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. To understand the canal's impact on Great Lakes shipping, the Welland Canal Register provides an important source for historians and archaeologists alike. The keeper of Lock 3 on the Second Welland Canal, where the register was recorded, included varying levels of detail over the years, but constant across all records was the date, ship name, vessel type, nationality, cargo, and the ports of transit. This presentation will examine the current results of this work, exploring history, heritage, data analysis, and time-lapse animation of the Welland Canal Register. By visualizing the data, hundreds of sail and steam vessels can be examined within the context of the Welland Canal trade, while highlighting the Niagara region's role as an entrepot on the Great Lakes Atlantic route. The work on the Welland Canal Registers was part of a larger Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council funded project, which had several objectives towards testing multidisciplinary methodologies for re-engaging local historic environments. Although archaeological fieldwork at the Chacluna shipyard was at the core of this project, the use of historical records was key to retracing how the shipyard contributed to and benefited from shipping through the Second Welland Canal, while also understanding the impact of both the Second and Third Canal on the ever-changing transport zones within the Great Lakes. The Second Welland Canal was routed from Port Dalhousie on Lake Ontario to Port Cockburn on Lake Erie to facilitate moving cargoes across the Niagara Escarpment. As a route of navigation and also as a source of water power for local industries, the Second Canal remained imperative for local businesses even when the Third Canal was opened in 1881. The Canadian government continued operations of the Second Canal until 1908, by which time hydroelectric power was prevalent across the towns and cities along the route, and very few Second Canalists were still using the waterway. Toward achieving our historical objectives, digitizing and transcription of several Welland Canal registers took place between 2020 and 2023. The archival digitization was undertaken at the Library and Archives of Canada, which holds records for 38 of the 55 years of operation for the Second Canal, and 16 of the 52 years of operation on the Third Canal. The digitized registers for 1854, 1875, and 1882 were then transcribed by our outstanding team of volunteers and Brock University students into a CSV file, which now holds over 8,000 lines of data. Speaking of students, the register has provided wonderful pedagogical opportunity across two of my courses, providing students on my Great Lakes Maritime and Coastal History course with materials for the Port Cities projects, while also as a tool to teach local historical archaeology by deciphering cursive through transcription and then analyzing and interpreting the results of their allocated pages of the register. Our next round of transcription will fill in the gaps of the 1864 Second Canal Register, which includes cargo tonnage data for each vessel, and also the 1882 Third Canal Register, which will shed further light on the concurrent operations of the Second and Third Canal, before the Second was closed to navigation in 1908. Once these data sets are complete, we will be creating a web-based searchable database for those interested in using the registers. Now, beyond the detailing of ship movements, we have canaler doodles. In 1875, lockmaster Arthur Carroll, while recording the comings and goings at Lock 3, either inspired or perhaps bored, sketched the bow form of the Second Welland Canalers at the front of his register. Artifact? Art? Graffiti? Either way, this drawing visualizes these beauties within their natural element and helps to shed some light on one of the human actors whose work contributed to the documentation and operation of the canal. Placing this in geographic context, Lock 3 is located in central St. Catharines. It served as the first lock on the route from Lake Ontario that was built to the standard lock dimension, thereby determining the hull form that would shape the canal trade. Whereas the entrance locks at Lock 1 and 2 were 185-foot chambers to enable the Lake Ontario trade to St. Catharines. This key position along a very busy corridor would have informed St. Catharines' significant maritime community of shipbuilders, ship owners, sailors, and others that benefited from the canal trade. The lock, which was approximately 150 foot in length, was only 500 feet from the Shikluna shipyard and adjacent to the Shikluna double dry dock, which serviced hundreds of lake vessels built for the bulk, passenger, and packet trades. It was at this shanty that our lockmasters compiled these registers for 64 years. Truly, if this lock could talk, it would speak of the hundreds of canalers that grinded through these lock walls and the maritime communities that were affected by and supported the canal trade. Today, very little remains exposed of Lock 3 because of urban developments in the 1970s. But as we're entering a period of bicentennial celebration for the canal, re-engaging canal heritage through conservation projects is timely, and I hope will enable restoring the East Lock Wall for interpretive purposes. To bridge the transcribed data with our time-lapse animation, we needed to solve three main problems. One, what path ships cross the lakes given only a source and destination? Two, what means will source and destinations be translated into longitudes and latitudes for mapping purposes? And three, how will the animations be ultimately drawn? The first step was to use a series of real shipping paths that the vessels would take to navigate the Great Lakes Basin, as drawn by Oak Ridge National Laboratory and Vanderbilt University. Next, these paths were turned into a network graph representation using Python, which allowed for a pathfinding algorithm to locate the shortest path between any 2 points. Then, using the Mapbox geocoding to turn text into geographic coordinates so as to determine coordinates for all of the 1854, 1875, and 1882 locations. The data was then processed with Python to create the network graph containing the water body path as a series of longitude-latitude points that every vessel should take given a source and destination. Finally, the data was then exported by Python into 2 files to the Mapbox web application, which then animates the vessel as crossing these paths. The result of our data transcription and time series animation provides a regional look at shipping facilitated by the Welland Canal beginning 170 years ago. To geovisualize the ships, their movements between ports over time, and the nature of their cargoes. My vision was similar to what was developed for the slave trade database and the 2-minute animation visualizing transatlantic slave voyages. Those of you who are avid gongoozlers might have an app called Marine Traffic, which shares real-time shipping data. So consider this marine traffic for canal historians, though the dots may feel a little like Atari's Breakout. The original proof of concept, version 1, was presented at the Canadian Historical Association annual meeting in 2023, while version 2 is temporarily hosted on our Great Lakes Port History website, but will be removed to the Shikluna Shipyard website in 2025. So for a brief demo of this animation, let's first begin with individual ship data. See here, the U.S. propeller Granite State is shown navigating from Chicago to Ogdensburg, New York, carrying hides. Now, the path is based on modern shipping tracks and is solely based on registered data. It takes into account a reduced speed while transiting the Welland Canal, which I'll show you shortly, but it doesn't take into account weather, accidents, stops for supplies and passengers, or traffic jams on the canals. Additionally, for sailing ships, it does not account for wind impacts, including tacking and jibing. The port-to-port dates provided are based on the speed of a vessel type and based on the central date of transit through Lock 3. We're working on refined timing for individual vessel types, but in its current form, the animation does provide an average timeline between ports for 19th century shipping. So as you can see, the slowing down of Granite State before she arrives in Ogdensburg. Now, next, I'm going to show you another ship that was actually a St. Catherine's built vessel. The Brantford, which is seen here, was a British flag propeller built at the Shikluna shipyard and is transiting here from Montreal to St. Catherine's carrying merchandise. To connect this with registers from Montreal and Quebec City could be very interesting to tell us the stories of some of those exports from Europe, Britain, during the 19th century and for export into the Great Lakes region. Now, certainly, the opportunity to examine transit through the Welland Canal can be further explored by pausing the animation, increasing the zoom size, and clicking on each ship. So as we're motoring over here to the Welland Canal, we get a sense of all the ships transiting during, of course, 1854. And on this particular day. Unlike the 8 to 12 hours that it takes ships to transit the current Welland Canal, in 1854, it was a slightly more scenic 2-day run through the Niagara region. The user has several controls that will enable also different layers and different speeds to explore the data, which again provides some control for displaying information on more simplified maps. Furthermore, we will also demonstrate also how the calendar ensures that those who might have specific date requirements are not in fact also limited by the slider. So you can see here in the calendar, moving from, again, a week from the 10th to the 17th in October 1854, again, providing us with more control over specific dates for research purpose. Now, finally, we have our info button, which is located in the top right-hand corner and provides details about the project, our team, and contact details. We'll update this as the project prepares for further releases. So while the animations provide a visual medium for exploring impact, statistical analysis contributes to understanding trends in shipping across the Great Lakes. Data, which also helps to inform our research at the shipyard to measure Shakuna's contribution to the canal trade. This preliminary analysis illustrates that Shakuna-built ships made up 16% of the British trade and between 7 and 14% of the combined US and British transits through the Second Canal, at least for these specific dates. With more data, it should help in highlighting Shakuna's economic importance to not only St. Catharines, but across Great Lakes shipping. The data in the next slides represent the number of transits through the canal. While cargo tonnage would be clearly useful, unfortunately, this data is only recorded on select registers. Here, analysis highlights the combined upbound and downbound transits for British and American shipping in 1854 and 1875. The decrease in American shipping by 1875 can be attributed to the significant reduction on Erie Canal tolls in March of that year, lowering shipping costs on grain and lumber by a third. The loss of U.S. trade was one of the compelling reasons for the Canadian government to make quick work on the construction of the Third Canal with its 270-foot lock chambers. Over time, the types of cargoes would change due to changes in local industry and manufacture, or increasing global demands for cargoes derived from forests and agriculture. With the opening of the U.S. Soo locks in 1855, the export of iron would increase rapidly. And today, iron ore remains the largest export through the Fourth Welland Canal, with over 90 million metric tons shipped from the Upper Peninsula in 2022. The ports that experienced the largest trade through the canal remain consistent over this period, with Oswego and Kingston standing out due to their role as forwarding ports, where goods would be transshipped. While Oswego benefited greatly from the Welland Canal trade with significant investment in vessel tonnage and facilities, while the Oswego Canal enabled direct shipments to New York through its connection with the Erie Canal, Chicago, Toledo, and Cleveland remained central to agricultural exports, while manufacturing and industry at Toronto and St. Catharines contributed to their key role in the canal trade. The following graphs represent the ships that completed the most transits for a particular season. Certainly, the propellers had the advantage of quick times, but of course, the results illustrate they remain competitive with schooner-rigged vessels. Many of the transits listed here were the extreme canalers as defined by Loudon Wilson. They were built for maximum carriage through the second canal. However, it's interesting to note that several of the schooners operating during the 1804 season were relics of the first canal, which, to make up for volume, made a greater number of passages. By 1875, British flagged vessels contributed to a greater number of canal transits. The impact of Erie Canal tolls, US and Canadian trade tariffs, and economic recession continued to impact the second Welland Canal trade over the next 6 years prior to the opening of the third canal. With the opening of the third canal in 1881, 95% of US shipping diverted to the larger locks of this new structure. However, the second canal continued to support many of the old canalers, while reduced tolls on the second canal route incentivized frugal Canadian shipowners. Two of these ships, the Prussia and the Augusta, built by Scicluna, however, only made upbound voyages through the second canal, their owners choosing the larger third canal locks for their downbound voyages, rather than offloading at Port Coburn, transshipping by rail to Port Dalhousie, where the extra cargo would then be reloaded. As seen in this photo, a second canaler benefits from the generous space with her tow as she transits upbound on the third canal at Lock 17. The importance of the Welland Canal Register goes beyond statistics and data visualization. It presents an opportunity to re-engage the historic canals and dovetails into several initiatives by members of the project team. While the excavations at the Scicluna shipyard and Double Dry Dock are central to our work, we are designing a program for documentation of the second and third canal using LiDAR and 3D photogrammetry to assess change and impact over time toward preserving the canal's legacy. As we begin to celebrate the first canal bicentennial, I hope that with our friends across the region, we can work together to seek designation of our 3 historic Welland canals, to finally bestow upon these storied lock walls the recognition they so richly deserve, and a conservation management plan for the future. If you would like to learn more about the project, I hope you will visit our social sites. And if you have any questions about the Welland Canal Register, please reach out to me by email. Thank you.